Well, welcome back to us. Hi, thanks for joining us. It's been a while. I took 3 months off. The reason I took 3 months off is I needed it. And I think when you do a podcast and you have a 25, 30-year career using your mouth, voicing opinions, reporting on information and news, sometimes your brain gets gummed up. And sometimes you get down. Sometimes you get behind the eight ball. And that was exactly me 3 months ago. I didn't know if I wanted to pack it in. I didn't know if I was going to keep podcasting. What I knew is that I needed to go and get some perspective and get as far away from this shit as humanly possible. And that's what I did. Our first podcast is all about that. It's about vulnerability. It's about what men go through, women go through, people transitioning in their lives, people who are experiencing stress, PTSD, anxiety. The world is full of it. The world's full of unfair. You can't open up your phone without seeing it. You can't log on to the internet without seeing it. You can't have a conversation with somebody without being told that you're wrong. We've got a real serious, unhappy society today. And I realized that I needed to go get some help. So I decided to go and talk to some people through those series of conversations, doctors, etc. I settled on kind of a fun little thing to do that is emerging as one of the most impactful studies ever done when it comes to treating PTSD or symptoms of PTSD, stress, post-traumatic stress, and depression. And it was a hero dose of psilocybin. We've heard about psychedelics and some of the therapeutics that are being used to treat people with severe depression, anxiety, a lot of people at end of life. The relief is incredible. The journey was incredible. And it kickstarted a summer where I really had to kind of figure out exactly what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was be resilient. What I wanted to do was to be able to operate and respond well in this world. And our first podcast back is with Dylan Moscovitch, talking about those things, talking about people like you, like me, who've been down this road, who've experienced success or some matter of success and have a hard time navigating life because you think you are supposed to be something. We carry hurt. We carry all kinds of issues with us through our lives that we never really unpack. So Dylan and I started to unpack some of that after we spent a weekend in the woods doing a hero dose of mushrooms in a therapeutic clinical setting. And it changed my life. My relationship with Dylan has affected my life in so many positive ways. And we're all here trying to figure out how to be happy, how to respond to life. So that is our first podcast back with former Olympic medalist, my friend, and now a man that gave it all up and decided he was going to go to Costa Rica, look for happiness and solutions and talk to people who were truly happy. And now he's bringing what he knows back to help other people the way that he's helped himself. Psychedelics and therapeutics are incredible. I'm here to tell you that this is something that I have integrated into my life. And that comes with a whole bunch of other stuff, which we get into the podcast. We talk about transitioning into new realities. We talk about failure. We talk about feeling like you're not enough. We talk about changing careers. We talk about changing yourself and where that starts and the role that fungus, yes, mushrooms, has played and may play in the future in helping all kinds of people experiencing the kind of relief that we all look for. So without further ado, please welcome back, I consider this podcast number 1 of the Dean Blundell Show 2.0, Mr. Dylan Moscovitch. It's funny, we were just talking about it in the room. I had no idea you were in The Boys. Like, no idea you were in The Boys. And it's easily one of my favorite shows, and I feel guilty every time I watch it. And now that I know you, and I've met you, and I've spent some time with you, I find it unbelievable you were in The Boys. Especially the role. Porn the Deep. Yeah.
Definitely the highlight of my life this far.
Was it? I don't know if it was the highlight of your life. But no, dude,
definitely not.
It's crazy because I was doing some research for, obviously, you know, when you talk to somebody, you're going to do a podcast and you're going to get into some areas that you're unfamiliar with. And you and I just met, right? You and I have only kind of been talking for the past month or so. But when I found out you were Porn the Deep, the porn doppelganger of the Deep's character, after spending the weekend with you doing a psilocybin treatment retreat ceremony, I laughed for probably 10 minutes.
There's a pretty strong juxtaposition there.
Was it fun? Did you like it? Did you like acting?
I loved acting, yeah.
Did you really?
The craft of it, yeah.
Really?
It was really a really important part of my journey out of skating. it really helped me to kind of crack deeper into different emotions and kind of accept all of them as equal and start to unravel in that way, start to express myself in a new way, be a little more naked as opposed to the polished kind of thing of figure skating. And also there's the flip side of it of, wanting to be a famous actor and not being willing to admit that I needed that to be seen. But the craft of acting, I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and obviously made a big difference. I guess it's just a great place to start too, right? That stage of your life of being Dylan Moscovitch, really started to transform at one of your acting classes, which I found interesting, where you had a chance encounter, and the journey that you've taken from this hard driving, incredibly successful Olympic athlete, medalist, someone who worked in the sport, someone who not only worked in the sport, but used that as an opportunity to pivot into broadcasting. Going from, and your story is incredible. I mean, it's one of my favorites, actually, the little that I do know about you, but the story of the evolution of Dylan Moscovitch and how you went from, being this incredible athlete on a global scale, and an Olympic athlete, to living in the jungle, and acting really played a role in that, didn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely did. The vulnerability was a huge piece. The exploration, the permission to recreate myself, in essence, was a huge aspect of my journey. And then, I met a mentor, Vyacheslav, in acting class. And it was kind of not long after I had a very intense and deep experience with psychedelic medicine in a very unheld, unintentional setting, explorative. And I went very deep, and it was very scary. It was very rattling. I kind of brushed with my existential crisis that I was kind of pushing down at the time after retirement and not really having direction. And V kind of came in and offered me some guidance, some compassion, for the ways in which I was flailing and out of alignment with myself, but deeply curious and seeking for some answers, some understanding about life itself and some deeper meaning. And thus began this is my new Olympic journey. This is, the journey inward is my new mountain to climb. And that's kind of really where it began.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's why we're here. If I'm going to communicate with someone who's listening to this podcast or a regular listener to this podcast, I got absolutely smoked on psychedelics this weekend with you at a retreat. You led the retreat, you and your lovely wife and V, who this guy you speak of. And, through the process of getting to know you, and there was a very specific reason for it. And, I speak colloquially, but, this was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. And I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. You were there for the beginning of it. You were there for the end of it. But your journey into it and my journey there and how we both met there together, not dissimilar. Where you spend your entire life training for something, to be something, and you think that is your foundation, that is your identity, that's who you are, and then one day, not dissimilar to anybody else on this planet who wakes up at the age of 35, 40, 50, whatever your age is, and you realize that journey is coming to an end. But you don't look at it like that. You look like it, that part of my life is over. Those are the ways that we kind of translate those evolutionary experiences from these things that we thought we were, how we grew up, and arriving in a place in your life, and I have arrived there several times, where you're like, what the fuck just happened? Why am I here? What am I doing? I am miserable. I am lonely. I am dark. I am sad, and you can't explain it. You feel like an imposter. And you have to do something, but you don't know what that something is. So let's get into that. I want to get into your journey. I want to talk about my journey and how both of those journeys kind of managed to find each other at a hobby farm north of Toronto this last weekend.
Yes.
You're from Toronto.
Yeah.
You are an Olympic athlete. We've established that. You're an Olympic medalist. You found yourself in a position, where a lot of people will say when they find themselves unhappy after a long, illustrious career, you found yourself in a position that I was in, right? Dark, miserable, sad, lonely, unsure. When did that start? Take me kind of through that journey. Tell me about Dylan Moscovitch, the path you're on, and then the full stop to saying, hey, I need to do something.
Yeah. Really, I think that sadness, that depth started creeping in really young. And it really took me until a few years after retirement to face it head on, like really face it. I was a very sensitive kid, very emotional, very in tune with my emotions, and very sensitive to people and things. And, in my studies of understanding that can sometimes be a survival mechanism at a young age, feeling like if you're in a family or a situation where you feel unsafe, that sensitivity is a heightened awareness of how to create harmony or try to create harmony when you feel there's a lack of that. I believe that to be, one of the contributing factors of how I moved in my world. I grew up in a very competitive sport, in figure skating in the 90s, as a vegetarian in Canada, and a hockey culture. And so naturally I grew up with some, let's say, adversity, school was tough. I had some hard times. I had some difficult interactions, and in retrospect, I could see this cage forming surrounding that sensitivity, surrounding that innocent romanticism, surrounding love, surrounding connection with people, surrounding just kindness. I felt this hardening happening to make me tough, to make me able to win, to make me able to survive this world that I so badly wanted to succeed in. And figure skating is an interesting one because it's also an art form. It's an expression. And so one of the things that I love so much about it was that I got to be this technical athlete and this performer. Moving to music, telling a story, expressing different aspects of myself. So, there was this kind of duality that played out. And over time, I created a Dylan that I thought would be accepted.
Could survive.
That could survive. And survival being receiving love and approval. And being enough. And my way of getting there was very much through will and determination. I had enough talent, but it was very much internal brute force in a lot of ways. And in hindsight, what I've really learned is there's this kind of split when one has a deep desire to achieve something, and it can be fueled by love and it can be fueled by fear, and there's a recipe of the balance of those things. But really, whichever one is fed more kind of colors the experience and builds the character of that person. And we can give of ourselves without needing to give away ourselves. And there became a point where I started giving away myself. And that was, some of my authenticity that I didn't really understand. It was too scary to hold that in the world. And so I went about trying to become the most popular version of me I could be, making friends with the kind of guys that would have bullied me. And also, with women too, needing that acceptance, needing that validation off the ice, and then on the ice, needing to be the best, which is not a bad thing. But
did you start figure skating because you liked it?
Loved it.
You loved it as a kid, young kid.
Yeah, I mean, I
So it was a
played
passion. You enjoyed it.
deep passion. I played competitive hockey, competitive baseball.
Yeah, you're a hell of an athlete growing up.
I was very active.
He's also humble.
I
He's
try.
humble. You know, I know you do, but you're a great athlete. I mean, figure skaters are some of the best athletes in the world. Right?
It's very demanding.
Yeah, sure.
It's definitely very demanding. I always kind of knew I was a skater. That's how I identified. It was my thing. And I think going through that bullying, going through that adversity, taught me at a very young age how to prioritize what is more important to me than what others think, which is kind of an interesting duality, given there was another part of me that was trying to please that.
Yeah, like you had to stuff down the idea that other people's opinions of you being a figure skater as a kid didn't matter, but then you also, chase that thing when you're looking for other people's approval when it did matter,
right,
to you
in different ways.
So what does that change? Because that's the fascinating part to me about people like yourself that are really high achievers, great athletes. You start doing this thing, you become a celebrated figure skater, but at some point it went from, hey, I love this, I enjoy this, to something that causes a tremendous amount of trauma at some point, right? Whether it's, the journey along the way, how you treated it and how you looked at it. But, that is, it appears to me, even just through some of our conversations, that you're no different than anybody else, that the thing you love is also the thing that that really made you turn away from or towards something else because it caused a certain amount of unhappiness in your life.
Right. It's like in some ways, a toxic relationship. There's a codependency there that I loved it, but I needed something from it. I stopped being able to give and experience it. The cliche of it's about the journey, not the destination.
Sure.
The destination became the thing, and I only made it to my one Olympics at 29, which is relatively on the older side for a figure skater. So you think about how many years my mom told me when I was 5, she asked me if I wanted to go to the Olympics. I said, no, I want to win the Olympics at 5. So you think 24 years of obsessing over this thing, right? You create this whole idea, this utopia, and
as an expectation,
and getting there was the experience of it was everything I dreamed of. Afterwards is what really smoked me. That promised land is a ghost town.
Explain that. What do you mean by that?
It's
because I understand what you mean by that, but you and I'll just give some context too before I let you finish answering the question I just asked you. Sorry,
I'll hold on to it.
Thanks. Because I have this mini obsession now with the idea that the destination is really the journey for me, but was never how I was taught. Life should go, is that you have to do these things to accomplish this to get to here, and then you'll be happy. But explain that to me from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's this kind of label, hat category thing that we have in our society, where we get placed in a place, and therefore that's how people relate to us and how we relate to ourselves. And this idea of being an Olympian, this idea of being an Olympic medalist, meant that for the rest of my life, because I was that, everything would just be that much better. And I'm sure there was something I picked up along the way from the energy created around it, but also the idea I created within myself, that I would just be happy for the rest of my life because I achieved that. Everything would just make sense, and there wasn't, a lot of athletes on the other side of that. There's not a lot of foresight. I know years ago they did this study, and they interviewed a lot of athletes and asked, if you were to be guaranteed that you would win an Olympic gold medal but you would die shortly after, would you do it? And a lot of them said yes.
Wow.
And that saddens me. Did it
sadden you then? Would it sadden you then?
No, because it's like a glorified heroic kind of thing, But on the other side, there's so much more life than a competition based on a set of rules that someone made up. We're playing a game. It's all an idea. It's not objective reality. It's subjective. It's collective subjective reality. It's something that we all, okay, this is important because someone said so. We're going to make this thing really important. We all agree. Okay, we agree this is important. This is important. Let's go make this important thing even bigger, you know? Exciting, incredible. What an opportunity. What an experience. Like that journey helped me meet myself in a way that most people will never understand until maybe like later in their life. That intensified, magnified impact of meeting myself in challenging moments, incredible. But the destination becoming the focal point, you get there and then it's over, and then what?
Got to do it again.
Right. It's an addiction. Right. So I finished my Olympics. I won my medal.
2014 Sochi.
Won a medal in the team event, first ever team event. Came fifth in the pair event. Did great. Went to Worlds and we came fourth by a couple points. Second year in a row we missed a world medal. And then my partner at the time split with me, and kind of, you know, my whole world crumbled. And I decided I wasn't done. So I got a new partner, and I made the kiss of death for myself. I made this decision that I would stick around to go to one more games, and it would be worthwhile if I got a world medal.
Worthwhile.
Because I was 29 at the time. I had a partner who was a lawyer, and there was this external kind of like pressure and idea of what life was supposed to be, and I was still, you know, I was getting into my 30s. I was still figure skating, and, you know, all of these kind of things were now starting to play a role in the way in which I was adding weight. I was dumping rocks into my backpack that I was carrying around, you know, and so it started stealing my joy. It started stealing my love. My next partner moved from Russia to skate with me, and that partnership was beautiful and also very challenging. And I started behaving in a way that was increasingly less connected to my heart, less connected to my patience, to my perspective. I was frustrated. I was short-tempered. I was angry. I was angry. You know, there were aspects of my career where I felt there were some unfair things that had happened, and I made myself a victim. And I allowed that to push me into a way of being that was not in alignment with my truth, my higher self, you know. And an important part of my journey nonetheless. But we were doing well. We were medaling at nationals. We came 6th at Worlds the year before the Olympics, helped Canada earn 3 spots 3 weeks before nationals. A 200-pound mirror fell on my face in a Pilates studio, and you know, knocked me out and easily could have killed me. You know, the circumstances that happened that I survived is kind of miraculous. And the glass shattered all over me, and there were pieces of glass lying on my neck, on my body, and, you know, the impact alone, never mind the glass, the pieces of glass lying all over me, could have taken me up. Concussed, competed at nationals 3 weeks later, tried to make the Olympic team. I had stuck around just for this. My partner got her Canadian immigration status, her citizenship status, maybe 2 weeks before that, by the immigration minister personally, so we could make the Olympic team. 2 days training, went to nationals, came 4th, missed the Olympic team by a spot, and that was the end of my career.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had this really powerful duality of an experience within my sport. I experienced the glory, and I experienced the massive heartbreak and death of a dream, you know? So I left the sport with that taste, and I ran in the other direction.
Running in the other direction, you know, was that a result of, you know, and I think I understand it because I haven't turned a radio on in 10 years. So, you know, and that comes with its own journey, but running in the other direction. And I think that's an interesting kind of jumping off point into what you ran into, and what so many of us try to run into, right? You know, you get to a point in your life where you have experienced enormous success, you know, and you're told that this is where you should be. You're told that you're great. You're told that this is the path your life should take. And that path is this destination of these external gratifications, right? That don't you want to do this? Don't you want to do that? And you buy it. In your case, you bought it. In my case, I bought it. You can be this, you can be that, you can be the best at this. Don't you want to do this? And you go, yeah, I guess I do, because this is...
give me all that Kool-Aid.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the self-worth that you feel from others identify. But there's this really disingenuous approach to it that so many people take when it's your life, right? And so you buy those things and you go, yeah, okay, if I reach that mountain. And then you reach that mountain, which you did in 2014. You reach the top of that mountain as an Olympic medalist. It is this incredible experience. And then you want to reach the top of that mountain again in the face of extreme odds, right? Where life is trying to tell you something and we're not listening. Mm-hmm. And the damage that we do when the universe gives us a message like a 200-pound mirror at a Pilates class falling on
like, take a closer look, bud, Like, what were the messages I missed? Like, how many?
No, you bring up a great point, and there's an analogy within what has happened to you. You look at those obviously as extreme disappointments, but you look back on it now and you're like, oh my God, what was I not listening to? But how is it that you're in this position now, jumping off of this incredible disappointment? How long did you, because you're here now, and we'll get to the journey now, what it was like, what happened, and where you're going. But that experience of wondering if it's over, being confirmed at the last Worlds where you come in fourth, or the qualifications for the Olympics, so you come in fourth again. What was that like? What was that feeling like? Because you've all of a sudden put all your eggs in that basket, which we've just talked about. You bought everybody else's dream for you. You think it's yours. And you go, now what? There might not be a scarier event for someone in your situation, an elite athlete translating what's going on in their life as extreme failure as the end, right? For some people, like, this is all that I've done. This is my entire life. So what was that experience like?
Yeah. As much as I can relate to it, felt like a death.
Felt like you were dying.
Felt like I was dying.
And there was no purpose. That was your purpose.
Yeah. And just the attachment to the outcome. The attachment to that ideal, that dream. It was dying in my hands, in front of my eyes, in front of many eyes, which adds a whole other layer to the humiliation feeling because of the idea that I can't be seen as failing, right? It's
because you never really failed before.
I definitely failed.
Well, I know we all have. I mean,
but there's still a fear of it.
Yeah.
Right. In a sport that's judged where, your outfit and your smile and your haircut and your, pointed toes and everything, like the way you present yourself it plays a role in the way you're judged and perceived. There's so much fear I had so much fear. I'm not going to speak for other skaters, but from my experience of seeing the world, and I know others have that, but my experience was there was so much fear of showing faults. There was so much fear of not being this idea of perfection, even though it doesn't exist, and even though I was so far away from perfection. It's just that it was so visceral, and the sad part is my last nationals, I knew it was my last nationals, and I wanted to enjoy it and soak it up. Like my dear friend Elaj Balde, he just ran a camp for skaters called The Art of Performance, doing amazing things with his wife Michelle to help skaters get in touch with their authentic performer. And Mariana and I were there helping, doing some off-ice stuff. His last national, he found his grace and managed to skate his last nationals just with this place of awe and gratitude and joy. And it was so beautiful. And I wanted that for myself, but I was still so stuck on the outcome that I robbed my own joy.
Expectations. I want to talk about those for a little bit, because your life has brought you to a place where your expectations for yourself are very different. And I also want to get into the spiritual journey you've been on, and obviously the psychedelic journey that you've taken, and what you do now, how, you know, you've gone from being this person that's expected all these things of himself, thought life was a certain way, thought you could control aspects of your life. And as it relates to so many stories, you know, even like mine, there were, and I'll tell you why I came to meet you. There were times over the past, I would say 3-4 months, you know, knowing what I do for a living, where I came from, doing a morning show in Toronto for as long as I did a morning show for. When we connected, you're like, "Oh, that's you," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. How you doing?" And how miserable I have become with the idea that talking into a microphone is my identity. Miserable. You know, there was a time over the past 3-4 months where, you know, at the end stages of your career, where I absolutely was disgusted by talking into a microphone, doing a podcast, delivering content. To the point where literally about 2-3 months ago, I almost shut the lights off. I almost said, you know what, fuck it. Zero interest in doing podcasts anymore. I would start a podcast with a complete panic attack, a huge meltdown. My hands would get sweaty, and I couldn't think straight. I couldn't communicate properly. I could not think, and I was an embarrassment to myself. I didn't want to be here. I didn't, not on this planet. I love my life, but this part of my life, something I thought I was born and bred to do, something that I had experienced so much success, material success, analytical success, was something that made me physically sick to my stomach. And that part of my journey has been the hardest part of my journey. And, you know, you and I have kind of swapped stories, right? Whether it's being in a cold rink, getting triggered by that, me getting triggered by microphones.
Isn't it interesting how both are related to the body speaking? You know, there's something beyond the cognitive knowing
that manifests itself through your body.
It's through the body, right?
Yeah, I've never experienced that before. You know, I used to hear about panic attacks or hear about these episodes that people would have, and I'm unafraid to talk about it. I talk about, you know, my alcoholism. I talk about my failures and the things that I've learned through them unabashedly. But this is something that was specifically very personal for me, which I haven't talked about, which is, you know, I felt like for the first time in a long time, I was an imposter in my own skin. And the misery and the shame that came from that, because how I interpreted it was, and zero peace in my life, afraid to look at myself, afraid to talk about this with anybody else. How I interpreted how my anxiety and my stress was manifesting itself through simply turning on a microphone was that you've lost it. You've lost your nerve. You're not meant for this anymore. And this is the internal dialogue. And if anybody says anything bad about me, no big deal, because the things that I say about myself
way worse.
are way worse.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I'm preparing for it all the time. But how it manifested itself is, Dean, you are no good at this. You were never good at this. You were always an imposter. You are still an imposter. And you are not worthy of this. Other people are better. They have more. You have nothing. Stop and go do something else. You're not worthy. You're not good enough. You're not enough. That's how I interpreted it. And you know, for all the things that I've worked on in my life, whether it's not drinking or CBT or psychotherapy, this has been my biggest struggle. This was the hardest personal time in my life prior to meeting you and even now working through those things that I've ever experienced. And it's what brought me to the retreat. It's what forced me, and I can't explain it. It's what forced me to get uncomfortable and go and try something that 5 years ago I would have walked into me doing what I was doing with you and that beautiful group of people on the weekend at a hobby farm north of Toronto, laying around in a room on a mat, taking psilocybin and mushroom tea and eating stems of mushrooms for 6 hours while going through this transformative experience. If I had walked in on me doing that, which you look back on it now, according to how I felt, maybe an act of desperation, I would have mocked myself. I would have made fun of myself. I would have walked into what I was doing that weekend and said, what are you people up to in this room?
Bunch of kooks.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't know where to go in terms of trying to understand what it was that I was dealing with. I can only tell you that for all the things that I knew were very true, that I am not defined by that. I am not defined by turning on a microphone. I'm not defined by those things. Is that the poisoned aspect of how I looked at it changed after I went through that experience with you and Mariana and V and all those beautiful people who were in that room. And I want to know why.
Don't we all? First, Dean, I want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. You know, it's something that I've learned through this journey is to stop and honor someone who shares vulnerably. We don't do that enough. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't honor how hard it is in our society to be vulnerable and truthful. And every time someone does, I think we can all take a moment to just say, hey, thank you. You know, thank you for showing up. Thank you for sharing that truth. Your fear with the microphone, your relationship to this instrument that was your paintbrush, your expression, this place where you got to share something beautiful of yourself became this this deep fear, right? And you talked about me with the cold. I moved to the jungle in Central America, you know. I'm like,
that's a great response to cold being a trigger.
I don't want to wear shoes. I don't, of course. But the hilarious and of course kind of expected thing is that I arrived there and my ship was waiting for me there. You know, like I can be in paradise and shirtless, shoeless, and warm all the time, and I still have to face all my demons. You know, it doesn't escape that thing, but it's this interesting journey, right, of going from this thing I loved to this thing that now is bringing up all of my demons, and going from this place of I used to relate to the things that brought up my demons as being bad, and now I'm finding a way to say thank you. Oh, you're excavating. I'm being offered an opportunity to commune with and understand these aspects of myself that are harder to look at, but actually just want love. They're like expressions of an aspect of me that, because they've been so oppressed and suppressed, are screaming for attention, and they're doing it in a way that's quote unquote ugly, so that they get attention. The way a child who's avoided will do whatever they can.
You saying my body was throwing a temper tantrum?
Could be. Could be your body, your inner child.
A psychosomatic temper tantrum.
I look. Science has corroborated what many ancient societies have known is that the issues lie in the tissues. You learn that when you go to a massage.
Yeah.
We store our dis-ease in the body in various ways, and the expression of how that sits in the body and comes out is different in each person, but it's like a clue if we choose to listen. You
said something in an article that you wrote, and I want to bring this up because I thought it was really sentient. It kind of builds into what we're talking about here. Peace being a state of being, and feeling very unpeaceful when you're having a panic attack. I don't know if anybody's ever had one of those.
They suck.
They're the worst.
Yeah.
But you said something that was fascinating. You said it's very possible to be miserable, frustrated, stressed, anxious, and unhappy while living in a place that is supposed to fix all of that. Connecting with peace is a practice that asks for consistency and discipline. But effectively, you go on to say, whatever you leave behind emotionally, mentally, energetically will greet you where you are going.
Yeah.
right, is you live in the jungle, you're triggered by cold, you go to the jungle, you're still living with you in the jungle, right? You're still living with you in a different environment, whether it's me, same thing. I'm still going to face me no matter where I'm going.
Absolutely. I mean, there's air conditioning down there in some places, and I'm back in the rink, you know?
You get triggered by it still.
Yeah. But it's an expression, right? It's literally a trigger. It's like, here's your doorway. Don't forget, this is asking to be worked on. This is asking to be seen.
So why do we interpret that as there's something wrong with us?
Because I believe we live in a world where we have symptom suppression at the basis of our wellness, right? We see being well as like we're not experiencing discomfort. And when we're experiencing discomfort, we find ways to suppress it. Mm-hmm. So we can get back to doing the things. We're human doings before human beings, you know?
Oh, I like that. Human doings before human beings.
Right. And it's, to kind of go back into my journey, I first went down to Costa Rica during the pandemic and got stuck down there. Poor me.
Yeah, it sucks.
And it was the first time I let myself be, like, just no agenda. Sit still. Listen. Feel. It was so fascinating and extremely difficult. And it was the first time I really went into who am I? Underneath, what am I? Am I my thoughts? Am I the things I've done? Am I the choices I've made, the choices I make? Or am I the deeper knowing that witnesses all of it? Mm-hmm. Do I have to define myself by all of these things? Or can I be the alchemizer that turns them into something beautiful, into growth? In Buddhism, they talk about the lotus flower. It grows in the muck and then produces the most beautiful flower, but it needs the muck, right? Carl Jung talks about a tree can only grow as tall as its roots reach down into hell, the depths of hell, right? So when we take away this good versus bad thing and we look at opportunity, or we look at things happening for us, and we embrace the challenges as fuel for our transformation. We talk about mushrooms, the kingdom of fungi, the most resilient species on the planet that can digest rocks and turn that into food. How can we learn to digest our rocks and turn them into fuel for our own transformation? How can we learn to become that alchemizer that sees all things as potential? Right? Not so confined by the categories and labels of good versus bad that man has created, and understanding more of an innate knowing of what feels true inside as our compass. Removing this attachment to only seeing and experiencing life through the head, and tapping back into the heart, which has this kind of fluffy connotation. That's
it doesn't sound like it. That's right. Like if you said, go with your heart as opposed to your head. I am so analytical. You and I talked about this too, right? Like me
even too. I'm a very analytical mind.
Yeah, we talked about that. How I get to the retreat this weekend, and it's a very spiritual thing. And I put the spiritual stuff over here because, as I said to you, I'm more interested in neurons and synapses and networking and how your brain works and how the chemical aspect of our perceptions can be changed if, you use this plant, right? Where I show up to a psilocybin retreat, you're facilitating the whole thing. And by the end of it, I'm like, there's something I'm missing. There's something that I don't understand. But that was my intention. That my intention was to go there and just have someone fix my brain for me real quick. Right. But it wasn't about that after I left.
Yeah, getting deeper into this kind of brain versus mind.
Yeah.
Where does the mind exist? Where does our consciousness exist? Where does the soul exist? These are different, philosophical, spiritual paths have different approaches to it. But if you look at philosophy and you look at spirituality, I believe they all kind of converge at this understanding how to work with the mind and not being a slave to it. Right? And within that, we have to understand the workings of the mind. What are my tendencies? Where does my egocentric way of being come into play? Why does it always want to attach onto everything? You come up with something good, and all of a sudden it's like, I did that. I created that.
Yeah, we insert our importance into everything.
Everything.
Don't we? Yeah.
Right? So it's this constant dance of, maybe there's an inner child aspect that still needs that. Like, how can we be kind and be like, yeah, no, I see you. I know that's what you need. That's okay. It's beautiful. What you did is beautiful. And you're coming up with something that guaranteed has already been thought of. I like to see it as like, well, maybe I just extended my antenna and dialed into the right channel, and something came through and I was able to articulate it, which is my own beautiful, unique expression, which is, great. And that uniqueness is very important. And at the same time, we're all connected to this unity of potential that exists everywhere. Right, everything is energy, everything is potential, everything is there, available, right? And when we can kind of zoom out and detach ourselves from our confinement of what we think we know, the realm of possibility expands, right? And this is where I think ritual and reverence and practices, these ancient practices, are really useful, in that they teach us how to get out of the mind's desire to hijack everything.
Sure.
It's connecting to something bigger. It's connecting to something else. It's tapping ourselves into respect. It's tapping ourselves into deep gratitude. It's tapping ourselves into this, humble studentship of, well, if I think I know this, what else is there? Right? As soon as I think I know something, I put a label on it, I put it in a box, it has nowhere to grow. It's stuck. And now I've built a building on top of that pillar of knowing. What if that pillar was bullshit, completely straight? And you've got 100-story building anchored on that support beam.
You get a little shaky.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so hard for people to change their mind, because their entire reality comes crashing down because their belief is resting on that pillar.
Well, and there's shame there too, because, at some point in time you look at yourself, if you're really honest and you choose to be self-aware because you need to get better at life because you're fucking miserable, where you go, oh my God, everything I have ever done and thought has brought me to this place where I am a wreck.
Right.
And dealing with that was not possible in my life because of the way until I showed up this weekend to your psilocybin treatment retreat. That is, and I want to ask you about that, because the shame, the lack of peace, the misery, the confusion around what it was that was manifesting itself. You're a loser, Dean. Stop doing this. You're not worthy. All of those things, right? The haste, which you talk about in this Medium article, living with haste and living stressed out. I mean, I'm one of billions of people that live like a pulsating, vibrant, loose endings, because you're fight or flight all the time. I am fight or flight all the time. What is it about this last weekend what is it about mushrooms that help me look at myself? It makes me emotional even talking about it. What is it about mushrooms? What is it about what I experienced this weekend that enabled me to look at all those shameful versions of myself? The alcoholic, the sad guy, the angry guy, the fearful guy, the guy who's still afraid of his dad at 51 for some fucked up reason. What is it about that experience that enabled me to look at that in a way that I can't explain, in a way where those perceptions didn't exist, where I looked at those aspects of myself that I've been running away from my entire fucking life with empathy, with love, without the parameters of the perception that I had previously looked at myself like that as. How did that happen? Because it's hard for me to when I explain this to people and they're like, how was it? I'm like, fucking unbelievable. Like, I'd sit there and shake my head at not the experience and as transformative as it was, but the transformative part was it enabled me for the first time to see myself and honor all those versions of myself and thank those versions of myself that I've been so ashamed by for so long, that have run my life. The perceptions of other people, the perceptions of myself, they disappeared that weekend. They disappeared through this experience while I was having this experience, and allowed me to look at all of those versions of myself with extreme empathy. What happened this weekend? I guess that's the real question I'm asking. and why? That's the $1 million question, isn't it? This is what everybody asks when they're like, tell me about that experience.
There's so much to unpack and everything you just shared. The interesting thing that, the first thing that comes to me is, why do you need to know?
Because I feel like I have been sold a bill of goods about how to get better by the Western world, to be honest with you. I really do.
So what did you receive? You received, as you shared, an opening, a different perspective, a healing that's begun. We have such a desire to know, which is a control wound, I think, that many of us carry. We're disconnected from believing in something bigger than ourselves. And so therefore we need to know, because how else can we explain it?
Well, I want to explain it so I can share it. That's the other thing.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's the science, right? There's the neuroplasticity that happens with these medicines, and I really encourage, and there's this battle with the Western allopathic medicine world, and calling these ancient medicines drugs. They're drugs, they're substances. When you look at it from this shamanic mind, they're medicines, and they have spirits. All shamanic views, cultures across the world see through the lens of animism, which is that everything is alive, everything has a spirit, and that enables us to learn from things in a different way, in not just seeing something as an object that I can take, but as seeing something as alive and even an extension of me, and therefore I choose to move about it and with it in a different way. So when you're communing with a medicine that has a spirit, that has an intelligence, I mean, go watch Fantastic Fungi. We've talked about this.
I have twice, dude. When I got back from the retreat, I watched it again the second I hit the couch.
The Kingdom of Fungus is so intelligent, right? It's so wise. I'm not Paul Stamets. I'm not gonna, I'm not that scientist. I understand enough about it to inform the way in which I address them when I commune with them. But when you go into communing with a medicine that has the ability to withstand every major extinction, to create life on this planet, to be at the beginning and end of the life cycle of everything, to be the digestive tract of the forest floor, to uplift other beings around it by transferring nutrients from tree to tree and information, becoming the brain of the forest. You go in and you go, oh, this isn't just like some pill I'm putting in and I'm told I'm going to get some, experience. No, I'm stepping into a classroom with a master teacher of symbiosis, of synchronicity, of cooperation, of anti-fragility, of resourcefulness. Now I'm understanding, okay, the mycelium grows under the ground and creates these networks. See,
and this is the part that freaked me out when I watched Fantastic Fungi. You talked about it. Explain that, because I want people to understand.
So every footstep, and I'm gonna butcher the number, but every footstep we take in a forest all over the world, there are kilometers and kilometers of mycelium that get affected by that footstep. It's essentially the brain or the internet of the forest.
These are interconnecting pieces of
fungi. Fungi is a decentralized nervous system. Yeah. Our bodies and brain is a centralized nervous system. It's contained. They grow cell by cell outward. Sure. In Japan, they created one of their subway systems using fungi. They watched how it grew to the next stop and followed that as the path of least resistance. Incredible.
That's all. Wow.
Amazing. Yeah. So when you look at that and you see, okay, the ability to adapt to its surroundings, to digest rocks, to digest oil, there's mushrooms that digest plastic. I'm trying to digest my past. How do I go, hey, what if I open myself up to the possibility that there are things in here I don't understand, and that's okay. But I open myself. as a humble student. I let go of what I think I know. I let go of what I think I need to know. I let go of my expectations of what parts of me I think I'm going to face, what that journey is supposed to look like for me to arrive at the destination of healing this wound. Mm-hmm. And I just go, I'm here. I'm grateful. Break my intention down to something really fine-tuned, like what is underneath all of my laundry list of things I want these mushrooms to do for me. And what if I come in as a collaborator and meet the mushrooms with my effort being my openness, my courageousness, the bravery required to surrender and let go and trust, to have faith in this process, to believe that something is happening, even though I can't define it yet, but I'm watching it unfold in front of my very eyes, inside of me as well, I'm experiencing my transformation. How beautiful is that? Mm-hmm. So when you're in the midst of, sometimes, when you look at these, when people call them psychedelic trips and they have a bad trip, it's probably that they were in a scenario where the medicine was offering them an opportunity to sit with some aspects that they've been avoiding, and they weren't prepared for it. When you go into that and you say, wow, it's so beautiful to transform, to heal, and to be a part of that, now the difficult journey becomes something that we can embrace, even when it's hard. We can lean in. We can say, I'm worth this effort. I'm worth this courageousness.
Well, and let me just preface it a little bit, because I have done all the Western medicines that have been told, SSRIs, I've been told, whether it be a mood enhancer, mood stabilizer, anti-anxiety medication. I've taken those. I've been given lorazepam before, and these were all symptom maskers. And I'll tell you how I know that today, because there are two things I experienced from going to this retreat with you, doing a high dose of psilocybin mushrooms, tea stems, and going through the experience with you, the entire treatment, which was about 6 hours, right? From the second, there was prep, and there was education that came with it. There was understanding, there was sharing, which put me at ease. But there were two ways that it really manifested itself in that Western medicine has never addressed, in which I'm still experiencing relief from: my anxiety, my PTSD, and my stress. One is that ability that I said that I had to look at myself in a non-judgmental, non-shameful way, and also to be proud of those versions of myself that I was running from, but in a real tangible way. I do not have the same fear. I am not jacked up. I am not on this edge or fight or flight ledge, so to speak. That's what I like to kind of explain. How I explain it to people is like being on the ledge all the time, wondering if you're going to fall or what's going to happen. But when I wake up in the morning, I've woken up with dread. Real, tangible, panicky dread for 7 years. Every morning for 7 years since I quit drinking. That has never not happened to me. It has been every morning faithfully. I wake up and there's a voice in my head that would say, don't bother, don't try, it's hopeless, really nihilistic shit, right? Mm-hmm. That manifested itself physically in ways where I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't brush my teeth. I wouldn't shower until 10, 11 o'clock, and that would be a struggle to get into the shower. The idea of getting my clothes on seemed like a job to me for 7 years. The day after the ceremony, I woke up and I was happy. I sat in my room and I cried because I wasn't sure what I was experiencing, because I hadn't felt that for a long time. That was on Sunday. Monday morning, the exact same thing. I woke up and I heard birds instead of thinking life's terrible. How is it that I've tried every other available opportunity to get well, to help me get relief from depression, help me get a better perspective, from cognitive behavioral therapy, which does help, and I've laid the tracks, I believe, through, psychiatric, psychological approaches to being able to deal with my PTSD, stress, anxiety, and how I felt about myself. How is it that none of those things relieved that? Yet in the morning, and since then, that entire darkness is gone. Because that's the part that makes me emotional today as I sit here after this experience that I had with you. That is not Western medicine, but it is the only thing that has provided me relief in the last 7 years.
Mm. You know, I thank you for sharing it. I feel so honored and frankly privileged to be able to bear witness to these experiences that people are having, where they're remembering themselves, you know, returning home to themselves. It's so powerful. I get emotional, you know, because my journey's been so intense too. And in this process, our availability to connect with each other is so much more present. It's at the surface, you know. And when I feel you, you know, and I allow myself to do that, and that gives me hope for humanity. You know, it really does. It gives me hope for a world that I think we're capable of. And it's not to say that these medicines are the answer, but there's something that helps us to remember our nature, because they are nature. You know, Western medicine and science has done incredible things, helped so many people, saved so many lives. I have benefited from surgery. I've benefited from all sorts of things. And there's something we're missing if we just keep rushing to get to the solution of feeling better. This way is going to the root. And sometimes it's messy. Healing is messy. It can be really messy. You know, there's different plant and fungi and animal medicines that are ancient and revered, and they can be messy experiences. And we tend to shy away from that. We don't want to look at what's there.
We don't want to be uncomfortable when we're uncomfortable.
We don't want to be uncomfortable, and we don't want to see the truth. You know, some of my biggest healing has come through my relationship with the truth, and the way in which I was not in relationship with my truth, or being able to share that.
Can you give me an example of that?
With myself, looking at myself and my behaviors, my actions, lying to people, lying to myself, hiding behind the veneer I created. That was an accepted veneer, and the deeper the hole I dug, the harder it was to try and get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, hurting people. Because I was so disconnected from sitting with the truth. And when I finally had the inertia of impact, of hitting that it's time now moment to sit with that truth, it was very challenging, but necessary for my own remembrance, from my own reconnection with me. Who am I? Who did I come into this world to be? What are the gifts that I have for this world, and how am I robbing myself and others of those gifts if I'm constantly trying to be someone else because I'm told I have to be, and I'm listening?
But did the mushrooms and did the fungi, the fantastic fungi,
the magic mushrooms,
the super fantastic fungi, that's probably why they call it magic, because I feel like that's what I experienced this weekend, that I can't explain it by any Western metric. Does it help you remove perceptions of yourself?
It opens. I mean, there's different ways of looking at it, you know, like you want to look at it from the scientific model only. There's chemical reactions, there's new neural networks, which are new behavioral patterns or thought patterns that are being formed. You know, within the psyche, from my understanding, it's separating us from this kind of attached view of things, where talk therapy is really useful, but it can only get you so far if there's a strong wall there. Right? This is kind of like a stick of dynamite. You know, you still have to dig the hole. You still have to keep digging, but maybe you hit some bedrock. You throw some dynamite down there, and then you have to keep digging, right? Like, you have to keep doing the work afterwards. But the mushrooms, these other medicines, which we'll get to, they have this ability to open our perspective to, you know, like, I like to use the analogy of like looking at a fish through water from outside of the water. It has a certain shape, it has a certain size, a certain color. You go into the water and that changes, and you rotate and you start seeing things differently. It offers you that opportunity to look from a different angle, right? It reflects back to you. It acts as a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
It shows you through visions, through metaphor, through symbolism, different aspects of yourself that maybe you're having trouble connecting with. It also helps to regulate the nervous system. He talked about hanging on the ledge, that
Sure.
fight or flight that we live in our
I haven't
society.
experienced that for 5 days now.
Right. There's a recalibration. This is the medicine. There's a healing. There's a resetting. We now have to choose the patterns and the behaviors and the thoughts even that support those changes, right? To me, and this is coming back to the animism, coming back to seeing it as a spirit, paying respect through gratitude and reverence to the gifts that we're given by offering discipline, by offering devotion to that change, you know, instead of this. And this is kind of getting into an interesting kind of topic around colonization and the colonizer in our minds that we all kind of have because we live in a colonized world.
Mm-hmm.
We all have this like, I see, I want, I take kind of thing within us to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So what is this substance going to give me? I paid my money. Is it going to fix this for me? As opposed to, oh, it gave me something different than I thought. I didn't think I had expectations, but I expected to see this. I expected this to be healed. Maybe it gave me, for some people, to have an experience that's really challenging because they don't get much. They're waiting for the big fireworks, the big movie, and they don't get that.
Yeah, they're waiting for a switch to go on. I think that's how a lot of people look at it. And that's how I looked at it prior to the actual retreat, is I thought, you know, and if you look in my journal, I detailed what I wanted out of this.
Yeah.
I want this, I want that, I want this. Again, very colonizer perspective, right?
Yeah, what can I get from this? What can I take, right? And then when you look at like something like love, to gift someone from a place of love is to gift them without any expectation of anything in return. So can we give from that place? It's a hard thing to do. Can we give our effort? Can we give our gratitude and say, I'm actually going to trust that whatever I get is exactly what I need. Maybe not what I want. Something changes in our mind and we start to see messages. We start to see truths, reflections, symbolism in different ways, right? So we now become a participant in the collaboration of this opening. You know, so the mushrooms do it, but we are very much a part of it. We're very much a part of it.
The mushrooms, it feels like, allow you to be in a place to do that, but it also, you know, I noticed back to what you're saying about what we want, what we hope we get out of this. What I experienced was a dissolution of something. There was a dissolving of my expectations. There was a dissolving of fear around dealing with the things. There was a dissolving of shame, so I could look at those versions of myself that I carried around in shameful ways and feel sorry for them, to thank myself for those. You know, there was this disillusion of, hey, listen, Dino, you were only doing, and I remember thinking this at the time, you know, and part of my journey was, I've shared with you and I've actually written about, was I wanted to kill versions of myself that I was ashamed of, parts of myself that I didn't like, the lying parts, you know, the perception of failure parts, the sadness part, the weak, because I interpret all those things as weaknesses. You know, being sad. You can't be publicly weak because then you might not get hired. You can't be publicly sad. You can't be moaning and pissing about the way life is because people are going to think there's something wrong with you, and that'll translate into losing money.
Right.
You know, that's how my poison brain at the time thought about it. But the way that I looked at those things in that experience was, oh no, you know, they have to come with us. They are part of your journey. We have to honor.
Those are our teachers. Those are our teachers, right? The hardest things about us for us to look at those are our teachers, right? They are the most challenging kid in a classroom. They are the family member that triggers you the most. They are those things internally, and those are our teachers, right? And it's really interesting, to look at it from that perspective, because it changes it from the victim mentality to the gratitude mentality, the gratitude attitude, of, oh, thank you that you are here to teach me. Something shifts in the mind. We now soften and we become more pliable, right? We can move like water instead of like stone. Sometimes it's effective to be like stone, but often it's effective to be like water too, where there's fluidity. It can be strong when it needs to be, but there's also this softness. There's this ability to flow with the currents of life, right? And right now that's present for me. And instead of creating my own suffering by resisting it, I can embrace it, and I can withstand this discomfort through acceptance and understand that nothing lasts. Everything is going to change. How do I want to be present in this moment? Can I offer myself that strength to be in this discomfort? V said once, the wisdom of no escape. And that hit me like a train. It's like, oh, once I accept that I can't escape this, how do I move with it after that acceptance?
How do I make it part of my superpower?
How do I make it part of my superpower? How am I building my relationship with myself, building safety to feel all the aspects of being me?
Yeah.
And then what does that create? There's this
discomfort. I noticed that was, and I want you to continue that thought, but just to add to what you're saying, and V said this too, something that was a real theme from the weekend is appreciating that discomfort that we've spent so long running away from.
Well, as an athlete, I found an ability to rejoice in the burn. It sucked sometimes, but there was a part of me that was celebrating the fact that I was getting stronger. I was offering my will and my effort for my ability to grow. Unfortunately, that growth was related to enslaving my body into achieving my ego's desires, right? But that concept is still very relevant in this inward journey. How can I offer my strength and courage, which I used to let go, instead of force and grip? Can I be strong enough to surrender, to let go, to soften, to say, this is? How can I move differently within this? When I have an emotion or a thought pattern that sweeps me up, I would love to hear how that is experienced by you. But like when something comes in, the trigger, the microphone, the anxiety, how can I be present with this and create a new way?
I'm obsessed with the distractive nature with which we deal with those things on a daily basis now, as opposed to leaning into it. That was another thing that came away. A big takeaway for me was, you talk about the importance in the practice that you have of really being in it, really being uncomfortable. V, who helped facilitate, talked about cutting your head off and just allowing yourself to be part of that process. And when we say cutting our head off, it's not thinking about it. It's just being present and saying, forget about your expectations.
Yeah, it's telling the mind you're not in control.
Yeah.
You actually answer to me, and you are incredibly valuable, and you are appreciated for all the cognitive ability and the ability to perceive this world. However, you're not in control, right? And that's what kind of coming into the heart is about this deeper knowing. When something's right. For me, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a no. And I'm really learning to work with that, to trust in that knowing, that intuition. If something in my body goes yes, it's a yes. If something in me is like, it's a right now a no. I don't know yet. I have to feel into it a little more. I have to gather some more information. But if I know it's a yes and I don't listen, I'm abandoning myself to please something else or someone else, right? So it's like, can I be can I be loving enough for myself to make those difficult choices, sit in the discomfort of not pleasing somebody else, and listen to the guidance that something deep within me is offering. And since I've learned to chop off my head, my entire life has changed. That's why I moved to Costa Rica.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, that the analogy for chopping off your head is literally forgetting about every perception you have, every thought, every idea that you have of yourself and what you're going through, and doing away with the preconceived notions that bring you to that place of extreme discomfort, which in itself is uncomfortable.
Right.
Because you have to submit and let go, which is another theme behind the medicine, right? It's
right.
This is not going to be you. You're going on its journey, so you better be comfortable. If you feel like you have to have control over everything in your life, and you need to know where things are going, and you got to be guaranteed outcomes, that is literally like jumping into the great wide open for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? Which is what makes it so daunting for people, as control mechanisms.
And then we also have to battle the shame surrounded that our ego carries from having been wrong.
Oh, that's a whole other fucking vertical of a conversation.
Right, but it's a huge, thick layer that we have to cut through, right? That's one of the main things that stops us from opening ourselves. Doing anything, or even just opening ourselves up to another way.
Yeah.
Is we don't want to look at the division in our world. People stand at opposite ends of the room pointing fingers, and sometimes they're stuck there because they don't want to admit that they were wrong. When all the world is asking for is for us to just say, like, hey, we're human. It's okay. You might have been wrong about one thing. I was wrong. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in the middle where it usually does. And let's just unite, you know? And
the fear of being wrong is its own pandemic today.
Right. And
it's a fucking disease
and
today.
We're not free because of it.
Yeah.
We are slaves of our fear. We are completely enslaved by it. Freedom lies in the ability to say, yeah, I was wrong. That's okay. I'm
and I've learned. And so now I can be right
and
about
who's
that.
to say that lesson wasn't meant to happen for me, that I needed that, you know? But it is our responsibility to learn from it, or else we will continue.
Why are we such dicks about that whole thing? Why are we so... Well, and I know it's like familial and we need to be nice to ourselves.
I think it's societal.
Talk about it.
I think it's societal.
Expectations that are placed
on us. I think there's
yeah.
We lack an ability to have compassionate accountability with each other.
The plane I was on. I think this is a great way to do it.
Like plane or
no?
Plane?
I was on a plane. I was on a plane where I'm seeing things on a level that I've never seen them before. I think I'm seeing vibrations. I think I'm seeing sound, and I'm seeing sound as color. And I'm giggling to myself, going, okay, I don't think this. What am I seeing? And after the trip, I think to myself, was that reality? What is that? Is there a word for it? Is there an explanation
the
for
blending
it?
of senses?
Is that real world? Or am I in the wrong? Like, what? Am I in the Matrix?
Like,
is this the Matrix?
This may be another podcast. But this word synesthesia, which is the blending of senses, where you see sound, maybe you taste colors, you know.
Yeah.
This is something that entheogenic medicines offer the brain. You know, the brain normally lights up one center at a time, and when you're with these medicines, multiple sites light up at the same time. One of the reasons that we can create new neural pathways very quickly. Terence McKenna hypothesized, you know, that the stoned ape theory, which is where he hypothesized that our predecessors were, stalking cattle along the plains, and out of the cow patties were growing these mushrooms, and they would eat them. And so when you look at the rapid incline in our cognitive ability, the size and capacity of our brain's ability to think, that increase was relative to other, aspects of evolution really fast. And so he hypothesized that these mushrooms likely played a large role in that development through synesthesia, which is kind of how language came into being. And so, I like to look at it from this perspective of...
You're saying human evolution wasn't possible without eating mushrooms?
No, I will not go on record and say that. But I will say that there's a great possibility that it increased the speed.
And because of the awareness, increased heightened awareness, the ability to access
and
parts of the brain.
relationship to imagination and creativity.
Yeah.
Right? Expression. All of these things within all of these different medicines get heightened.
Sure.
The exploration of everything is different, you know? And so
non-judgmental exploration.
Right. Yeah. Right. This like zoom out of this human idea of right or wrong, and it's just is.
Yes.
And look.
Yeah.
Feel. Sense. Right? So it's this really interesting kind of concept. And I like to look at it from this lens of, okay, our brain has receptors that interacts with these beings in this way. So obviously there's some relationship there. Otherwise, it wouldn't react in that way. Mm-hmm. And regardless of the context that people have come into relationship with these plants and fungi and animals, almost across the board, there are these beautiful, euphoric, expansive experiences. Even if they're hard in the moment, people are left with and the data shows people are left with these lasting effects. So, you kind of have the opportunity to just open up to the fact that, there's a relationship there inherently, biologically. There is something there. Between the fungus and the human being, between the fungus and the human mind, between the physiology and the nervous system of a human being and this fungus. You can research it. There's so many. I already did. You can research it, people. You can research it. There's so much information out there now.
Well, I want to get to that a little real quick, because it leans into why you're in Costa Rica, why you're in the jungle. You're not just working with psilocybin. You're also working with ayahuasca. There are dozens of other plant-based medicines, natural medicines, ancient medicines that not only don't get the credit they deserve, but they also get pushed aside as fugazi, right? And I want to get into some of that, because just through psilocybin, and Johns Hopkins has this incredible treatment study that they've been doing that lends itself to the idea that psilocybin assisted therapy led to a 71% reduction in major depressive symptoms after 4 weeks. 71%. In a lot of these cases, these people were individuals who were desperate because they were resistant to any type of relief for depression, PTSD, anxiety, when it came to drugs, psychotherapy, CBT, hypnotherapy, all the things that Western medicine tells us. And listen, there's a lot of great solutions in Western medicine, as you pointed out. But this is different. And the studies that are coming out that have been buried since the late 60s, early 70s, when Nixon turned it into a Schedule I drug in his infinite wisdom, which is fucking ridiculous to me, is that this might be not just groundbreaking, the most natural ability, the most natural solution for people who really, really suffer to get relief that they cannot find anywhere else. If that's the case with psilocybin, what don't we know about other ancient medicines, other ancient solutions, other solutions that you're seeing? What are some of those examples that you're seeing right now that give you hope? Because for the first time in the last 20 years, I have hope. And now I'm starting to think about, okay, well, if we're seeing, the Western medicine co-sign the fact that psilocybin, not plant-based, fungus medicine, psilocybin, mushrooms, are giving people with no hope, not just hope, but long-term, in some cases, relief, where you don't have to take a pill every day, you don't have to eat mushrooms every day, you don't have to have a ceremony every day. But people are waking up happy. People are getting relief. What else do we not know about medicines that you work with, or things that you see, people who've been doing this for thousands of years that we're just not privy to here?
Yeah, I mean, when you say all those stats, you look at the infrequency that's required for these treatments, you can kind of
You don't have a lot of repeat patients in this.
Yeah, which is not a good business model. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, it's not an industry war you want to get into, but I'm being serious, right?
Well, I mean, you can see maybe one of the reasons that they are shunned based on the industrial needs of repeat customers. Is one way to look at it. Yeah, look, I really want to start by saying I feel very compelled to advocate for the indigenous original carriers of all of these medicines. You know,
that's where pharma gets how they deal with what they deal with when it comes to symptom suppression, is from a lot of medicines, roots, plants. I mean, that's really
extraction, right? Which is the colonizing mind. What can I take from this? You know, even if you look at, I think it's aspirin, comes from a tree bark, and you extract the specific alkaloid, increase its content, and it becomes harder on the body, whereas that whole alkaloid content of the tree bark has different alkaloids that support the body to be able to ingest that pain fighting alkaloid, right? Even within mushrooms, they're extracting psilocybin because science has decided that we fully understand that it's the psilocybin only that's important within the entire mushroom structure. This kind of takes us out of this animistic mind, this animistic worldview of everything as a spirit, and like looking at the mushroom as being perfectly designed by nature as it is. You know, within a macro dose or a flood dose, as it's called in science, or a ceremonial dose, sometimes there's nausea that comes up. Science is trying to remove the nausea. And I argue, we talk about this
that you need that experience.
Maybe that's part of the experience. We're just not understanding it. The indigenous, the ancients, the way they work with these medicines, they revere them and all that they bring. They respect them immensely. They don't abuse them. They don't over harvest them. You know, the one thing we have to be careful with this second renaissance of these medicines is, yes, they are so valuable. They have so much to offer humanity, but we can't just keep extracting everything from the natural world at a rate where we don't pay attention to how much we're consuming with respect and reverence. And we can't do that and expect everything to just be in abundance and in balance. Right. And it comes down to, when in ceremony, I've learned from some of these indigenous tribes, you know, they've shared, like, even if you're going up for a second dose, ask yourself why. Am I just looking to chase an experience? Am I just in euphoria and I want to stay there? Am I just looking for the medicine to do my work for me? That medicine had to be harvested, you know, that vine had to be cut. It had to be, you know, when we're working with ayahuasca, those leaves from the chacruna had to be harvested. There, 3+ days it was cooked and prayed over by someone, right? Like there's a whole process that goes into it. And
a respectful process too, right?
Deeply spiritual.
Nothing transactional about that process.
Nothing transactional. And so when you look at it from the lens that we have in our Western world of, like, it's just there, packaged, ready to go, we have so much in abundance and we create so much waste. These are sacraments. These are sacred medicines to these people that they have safeguarded for millennia, that they have protected from this Western mind. And they have, in some cases, you know, died at the stake because of their ways. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, science has found these things.
Oh, they just ripped them off, dude.
Are we that egoic? Are we that?
For sure we
are. Are we that blind?
For sure we are.
So I believe we need to put the indigenous at the forefront. The scientists need to be learning from the indigenous, merging this way of our psychology, our understanding of psychology is really powerful. Merge it with their understanding of wisdom and psychology. Our understanding of these medicines through science is powerful. Merge it with thousands of years of lineage handed down. You know, the one family that we work with, the Lopez Sanchez lineage, Shipibo family from the Amazon of Peru. It's a matriarchal lineage, a mother and 3 daughters that work together. So powerful. so beautiful. They give so selflessly to humanity. You know, they've opened themselves up and they welcome in Westerners. They live in their little village, you know, they travel, they leave the Amazon and like learn what an escalator is. Like they go through these whole processes to help humanity and to be able to provide for their village, you know. And the mother, the matriarch, Maestra Inez, she's nearing 80. She's been drinking medicine since she was 6, you know.
Mm.
Do we really think we understand anything compared to her experience? Do we really think we know?
No, but it's quick. It's easy to, you know, how quickly we write those stories off because they're unfamiliar to us. And then we don't embrace those stories. Therefore, we don't embrace the solutions that they might be able to provide. One of which I experienced this weekend, which was not ayahuasca. It was a mushroom psilocybin ceremony, but ayahuasca, if I'm saying it right, ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Which is very hard to spell, by the way. They should have made it easier.
Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca. Is that an area that you're familiar with as well? Obviously, it's something that you've done.
So we don't.
It's very different than
We don't serve that medicine.
Right.
You know, the way we see being in right relationship with that medicine is, it's a very big responsibility, and it's a deep studied path.
Mm-hmm. Is it being studied right now? Because that's another thing that we've talked about.
Is science studying it?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, and they're creating synthetic ayahuasca. I even saw ayahuasca gummies. Seriously? And it just makes my stomach turn.
Are you serious?
Yeah. It's terrible.
Yeah,
Everything's in gummy form now. You know?
Yeah.
Like throw some gelatin and sugar on it and we're good to go.
We're snowflakes. Western medicine has turned us into snowflakes. I was just listening to you talk about how they wanted to take the non-nauseating ingredient out of something so we could have a better experience. I mean, when that's really supposed to be the whole purpose of it.
Or like take away the purgative of ayahuasca.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's part of the medicine.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to offer yourself that journey of healing, this is what the journey might entail.
What's the difference between the two, ayahuasca and psilocybin, in terms of, you know, that you've noticed in your experience?
My experience, the way I feel, ayahuasca is a little longer. Often, not all, but most ayahuasca ceremonies run through the night. It's a vine. It's a darker, like shadow medicine. It's a nighttime medicine. It goes deeper into the shadow. I feel it can. It doesn't always. It's more physical. It's definitely more of a physical purgative effect. Not always, but it vibrates differently. You know, and what's really fascinating is that we can look at all of these medicines as substances and we try to say, okay, this does this, but each species of plant, each strain, each person cooking it, each batch is different. And then you get into the way the ceremonies run and it's completely different. The different tribes have different technologies of prayer, that, as they call it, that activate the medicine in a different way. And it's their vibration, their songs, their intention, the energy from their heart, their relationship with the medicine, with the land, with their relationship with spirit. All of these things come into play into the way in which that medicine and that spirit of that medicine activates and interacts with us. And it's also different for every single person. All of that being said, I find mushrooms has the potential to be a bit more playful. It can be really intense and really deep as well. And I kind of just equate it to a different species in the way that it lives and grows, you know, and so there's a different intelligence, there's a different being in there. And
do people use them for the same purposes? Like, do people, you know, someone who, like me, who was really drawn to a mushroom solution, I think and obviously it's more flexible, readily available. It's not as, but you know, that experience compared to a ayahuasca experience, and are the end results the same desires from people that go on both of those trips?
I mean, it depends how you create metrics and perceive results, you know.
Yeah.
I think for psycho-spiritual, psychosomatic healing, they both have a lot of potency. You know, the mushrooms grow all over the world. There are cultures that are known, you know, the Mazatec people of Mexico, Maria Sabina being the famous shaman that, you know, brought through George Wasson, that brought mushrooms into the Western world, but they grow all over the world. And there are studies and bodies of evidence showing that many cultures had some sort of relationship with mushrooms. Not all, but many. Ayahuasca originates, as far as we know, from the Amazon. And it's a DMT containing plant, chacruna. There are also different variations. And then there's the MAO inhibitor from the ayahuasca vine. And when they're together, they activate, in a certain way that enables our body to not break down the DMT immediately, but it activates within us. So
it's a naturally occurring psychedelic Lego. When you use one part of it, combine it with another part of it, boom, you're on the moon.
Well, it's the masculine and feminine balance. It's that merging that, and we say also that intermarriage of the masculine and feminine. It's that intermarriage, that unity that we can start to create within ourselves. The medicine shows us how to do that. And then, of course, the different tribes, the way they activate the medicine, offer different healings, different ways that they go about that. There's peyote, there's wachuma, which is San Pedro, which have the mescaline content, but they all have these different histories, and they're all so beautiful and so powerful, and unfortunately are being exploited and appropriated and colonized in many different ways. And it's a tricky landscape. We all have to continually, all of us that are not of the tribe who are devoting ourselves to this work, have to continuously ask ourselves, am I in alignment? Am I in reciprocity?
Am I doing this for the right way?
Am I doing this the right way? Am I doing this for the right reasons? Is my ego starting to take over? I'm human. Of course, that's going to come up.
Yeah.
You see it in yoga, you see it in Buddhism, you see it in the church, you see egos take that, when someone ascends spiritually to becoming a leader, the ego can very easily take advantage of that, and we lose our way. So we have to continuously stay in the inquiry, I believe. And I really encourage everyone who's venturing into this world to really do their due diligence and researching safe and responsible places and people holding these medicines. Are they in alignment? Are they connected to an indigenous teacher? Are they connected to study? And do they continually study themselves, or they think they've already ascended and they're there? It's a lifelong journey. It really is a lifelong journey.
Well, and it's turned into that for you, right? To have changed your life so dramatically over the past several years to, from searching to being all in. That's come obviously from transformative experiences and the solutions that you've experienced in what you do now and the lifestyle that you have.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's got to be a hell of an experience when you're like, I'm going to leave broadcasting and a country where I won an Olympic gold medal for 35 million people. Silver. Sorry, silver. Yeah.
That's okay.
Oh, that's a shame. Silver. It's not a big deal still.
I don't want to take responsibility for something I didn't achieve.
All right, fair enough. That makes sense. To living in the jungle and dedicating your life to this because it has been that transformative. Your ayahuasca journey has been that transformative that you make it your living, your lifestyle, right? Which is incredible. I mean, what is the name of the people that you work with down in? Is
Shipibo. Shipibo tribe. Yeah.
Okay,
it's
the Shipibo
the
tribe.
Lopez Sanchez lineage.
Okay.
They have the center Niue Rao Shabo and another center Samati Shobo, which is opening.
And is it a facility?
Yep.
You work at?
They have a diet center. We go and support and study there as well.
And it's also people can come down, right? People can come down and experience not just psilocybin. They can come down and experience.
It's called Master Plant Dietas. It's a deeper it's a deeper study to go into the Amazon and put yourself in that context for 10 days to 2 weeks. It's incredible.
10 days to 2 weeks. So you can have a transformative experience, but you can also be in it. You can immerse yourself in it. Down where you work, correct?
Yeah.
So I guess I'm coming down.
I guess I'm waiting patiently with excitement.
Am I allowed to bring cameras?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to bring cameras and microphones?
We'll have to talk to them about it.
Yeah,
we'll have to talk to them about it.
Because I feel like people need to know about this, And it's not like when you buy a new car and you want to go show it off to your friends. This is a very different
Right. It's like, what's the intention of sharing? We
Yeah.
talked about this earlier,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not about what's said or done, it's where
Sure.
it comes from, the why.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is another, inquiry, right? Because it's, even after having these experiences, we want to share with everyone.
Sure,
and
yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then also it's like, wait, am I hijacking my process? Am I getting in the way of this continual unfolding by like blurting this energy everywhere? It's I find for myself, it's really offered me depth of curiosity into everything.
Mm-hmm.
Am I really willing to look at myself and with loving eyes, but also with accountable eyes? Am I really desiring to grow? And in that way, am I really desiring to get to know my truest truth and be my truest expression of that? That to me is the most worthwhile endeavor that I could put myself and all my energy into. Right? Like tackling this mountain with no top and just learn to climb continuously.
And making that your destination, making that your result.
Right. The process, as opposed to the destination.
Is that the biggest difference between Dylan Moscovitch 1.0 and Dylan Moscovitch 2.0 is why you do what you do? Because the kind of change you made isn't like, okay, I'm going to move from, this industry to this industry, and it's sales to PR. You went from being a broadcaster, being a very well-known athlete in this country, to a guy, living in and around your entire family, everything you've ever known, to literally cutting off what that meant and immersing yourself. Like, what is that Dylan like today? Because I only know the guy that's sitting in front of me. I don't know the guy that, used to go clubbing after finishing a broadcast and hanging around with his friends and, pounding vodka sodas. I don't know that guy. I only know this guy. But yeah, how do you square both of those guys today?
That's the current weaving. That's the current journey, or at least this chapter is the
you're dealing with it now.
The merging,
yeah.
The merging of I continue. My study is in its.
Are you studying to become a shamanic doctor? Or
no, I'm just studying the medicine
because you love it.
Because I want to know myself. I want to be the best version of me for me and those that I love in the world.
But it's not just the medicine; it's the practice around.
It's everything.
The medicine. Yeah.
It's the way of being.
It's the habits, the decisions.
What philosophy, what life approach do I want to be with, and now weaving that in with who I was as an athlete, like all those skills, all that strength, all that resilience, all that ability is so useful. And also seeing, I don't only have to work with the medicine to reach people. This is not for everybody.
Yeah.
Not everyone's ready for this. And that doesn't mean I can't offer some insight, right? I feel like I have a really interesting vantage point of having been successful in one aspect of life and then thrown it all away and explored something completely different. And so, I work with some athletes, some performing artists, some pianists around mental performance.
That's got to be bizarre. Eh? The kind of people that come to you are people like me and other people like you, right? Those are the kind of people that I notice. I've only talked to athletes and performers about their experience with psilocybin-based treatment or ayahuasca that have benefited greatly. And I know it's the circles you move in, but it's amazing how two different industries, whether it's media, whether it's athletics, on a grand scale, that the thing that people seem to come to the plant and that therapy and ceremony to get is relief from other people's expectations of themselves and their own.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, as you said it, how do you feel right now?
It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain from a perspective of I feel emotional, I feel grateful, I'm happy. I have moments still. I can't qualify or add a metric to the relief that I have from my anxiety, my PTSD, my shame, my anger, but I'm not afraid of it today. And I kind of giggle. I find I've got moments where I kind of giggle to myself, like, Dean, it didn't have to be that hard. You didn't have to be that hard on yourself. I'm not as hard on myself today. Yeah. It's like I've given myself, as you pointed out, and it was one of the first things you said to me, is that give yourself permission to be okay. Give yourself permission to relax. Give yourself permission to chill out for a minute, right? Yeah. It's like I've got a hall pass, an emotional hall pass, to explore the things, honestly, that have caused me such tremendous grief for so long, that I want to continue this journey. So,
what do you think you're going to do? How do you think you're going to traverse when this, which will shift and change and fade, and you're met with, what do you think will be different? What will you bring to that next brush with that challenge?
Oh man, I don't know. An open mind, less judgment, appreciation of the uncomfortable parts of having to deal with it, as opposed to running away from it. I think a little more courage, a little more pride in myself and my ability to understand what it is that I'm dealing with, whether it's sadness, misery, frustration, shame, any of those things. That's what is, that's the gift I have today, that I have never gotten from any other treatment or any other medicine or any other experience with anybody. Just you, your wife, V, and 7 other courageous individuals who were all there for the same reasons, right? I can't live like that anymore. I can't be miserable. I can't be sad. I can't judge myself according to other people's metrics anymore. It feels like my mind and my brain has been reset to some extent, and reset in the ways that old perceptions truly, I know they exist, but they are much less important. It's not like I look at them like it's life or death anymore. So whatever I take and the integration of what I experienced, I want to talk more about microdosing. I want to look into that. I want to change my practices today. I want the practice of being mindful and staying in the aspect of dealing with myself that I was able to experience this weekend. I want that to be something, not a one and done. I don't my experience here means I want more of that experience. It's not like, okay, great, I can go back to my old life. I know that I need to change different things about my life, and I need to experience life on life's terms, but want to do it with an open heart and no fear. And for the first time maybe since I was in my teens, I look forward to whatever comes. Amor fati, which is embrace fate, right? Love fate. I've got it tattooed on my arm, along with memento mori. 2 really important things to remember is I'm going through this with so many people who've embraced this as an opportunity to get well, is I get a chance to mean it because I truly believe it for the first time. That isn't possible with the brain that I had prior to this experience. And I can't explain it other than through your words, and I want to thank you for them. And the work that you do with Tierra Viviente, which is you and your lovely wife. Can you tell me a little bit about that as well before we go?
Yeah, thank you, Dean.
Yeah. So having said that, is your intention to, because I know you've got a company called Tierra Viviente. That's who put on that was the umbrella organization. It's you, your lovely wife, and a few other people that put on this weekend's experience that I had, the ceremony and the treatment experience that I had this weekend. Is that something that people can contact you, they can get a hold of you to learn about it? Because you spent a lot of time no talking me into this. You just answered a million of my questions. So how do people get a hold of you, I guess, is the way that...
Yeah, I mean, Tierra Viviente is the collective that Mariana and I have co-created, which kind of came into being. We got married in December, and this was our new way forward. And it's really just this idea of creating this collective, this safe space for people to heal and grow and be together in this journey, you know. And Tierra Viviente, you know, living earth, and earth living is the way I interpret it. I know, you know, there's the grammatical part in Spanish, but it's this way of like remembering our nature and coming back to the roots of that, and learning from the natural world in how to remember our nature and our way. And so, you know, we offer different things. We offer work together. We offer work supporting our teachers down in
You
Peru.
do one-on-ones too?
We do one-on-ones, and we also both do mentorship and coaching. And that's, you know, another part of, I have Helix, which is my coaching and online course work. And bringing my journey into like a different language without the medicine as well, unless someone feels called to that. But even mental performance, you know, helping.
Yeah, you coach a lot of people still to this day.
Yeah, and helping people find, like, it's this holistic view of finding your potential, you know, and seeing that it's not about pressing down the parts of us we don't like in order to achieve something. It's more about, oh, no. Let's get all hands on deck, and let's figure out what is needed in each part to raise its level, to bring its gifts to the surface, so we can create a fully functioning, harmonious, integrous system within ourselves, so that as we express, as we do, we fuel ourselves with love, with passion, with inspiration, and thus we enjoy and thrive, you know. And so that's kind of my journey into how am I offering this work away from the medicine while carrying the messages of the medicine and the medicine of my athletic career. So that's kind of my own individual work.
So you're putting it all together.
Yeah,
you're putting together the medicinal aspects, what you're learning, and not just that, but what you've learned about yourself, and everything that you've taken. You've embraced those parts of yourself. You're making pals with yourself.
Trying.
You're making pals with yourself, and you're using it to help other people. So Helix is the name of one of your companies, correct? Tierra Viviente. How can people find all things Dylan Moscovitch?
TierraViviente.org
Yep.
Is our website. DylanMoscovitch.com. You can find us on Instagram as well, Tierra Viviente, and Dylan.Moscovitch on Instagram. And my wife Mariana also, you know, does mentorship work for women. She does voice work, and we're in this exploration of different expressions of how we can be of service to helping people find their own healing, their own answers. You know, we in no way believe we have people's answers, but we offer some guidance in getting there.
Do you ever think this would be you?
Not in this way.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time and a part of me that thought I would be in LA, you know, like swinging some swords around in front of a camera.
Yeah. You're going to be a big time actor.
Right.
You're going to be, you know, that's the thing, is the journey that life takes. That's why I ask, right? Do you ever think that, you know, you look back 10 years ago, do you ever go, my God, I live in the Amazon. I wear very cool clothes. I never wear shoes.
No, I did not see this coming. And you know,
a kid growing up downtown Toronto.
And looking for the big city everywhere. You know, I think the biggest thing that I feel is I've come to this place where I don't necessarily know how it's going to unfold, and that's okay, because what's more important is that I continuously am trying to find peace in my heart and in my mind, and be in alignment with what, you know, is true for me. How can I be of service to myself and others? And the way that unfolds is, you know.
Do you like yourself today?
I do. I love myself. I do. Yeah.
I think a great way to kind of put a cap on it is, someone asked me this week. That's why I asked you that question last, right? Someone asked me this week. They're like, "What's the purpose of that? Did you go to some guy's fucking house and do shrooms?" That's what my buddy said, and I'm like, "Yeah, a lot of them actually." And he said, well, what's the idea behind that kind of therapy? And like, what did everybody share in common? And that's why I asked you the question. I said, I think it's a bunch of people that really didn't like themselves very much at the time. And that in itself is worth the journey, because you have to live with yourself all the time. I think you get to, thank you for correcting me, I know you've had to correct me a few times, you get to live with yourself, so you get to know yourself. And I found that this experience, there was a real commonality there for a lot of different people, whether it was people that like you facilitating it or people like myself who were there. I found that the journey of liking yourself starts with forgetting about what you thought of yourself, forgetting about the ways people have been taught to think about themselves and things and how we categorize and label things. It's impossible to like yourself when you're so ashamed by all the other aspects of yourself and the decisions that you've made along the way and how you interpret them to be who you are, right? Is that we are a collection of our experiences, but I don't think we are a collection of those labels that we give ourselves. So hearing that you say you like yourself, love yourself, knowing I like myself, and I got to know myself again this weekend, that's the journey of wellness in my mind. Is are you on a journey to bring yourself to a point where you can get up in the morning and like who you are, no matter what you've done, no matter where you've been or what you've experienced. And that requires healing and being uncomfortable. And that was the first best experience I have ever had. And even, I mean, just the magical relief that I feel today, knowing that I'm still on an incredible journey and I get to go on it, as you point out. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for chasing me around, because I said, dude, you're going to have to chase me around. I'm going to fucking bail for sure. Like, if you don't chase me around. And you did, and you didn't give up on me for that experience. And it was for the right reasons, right? It was for the right reasons that you chased me around. It was for the right reasons that I went. And I would highly encourage everybody who has identified with any things that we've said here too, to be open to reaching out to you. Everything is in the description of the podcast, so I'd encourage everybody to look for those links to be able to get in touch with you, to talk to somebody if you're feeling like, man, I'm desperate for some solutions about liking myself and being at peace with who I am and letting go of misery and letting go of the idea that I'm in control. I would highly encourage, because that's misery, living in that capacity where you can't control any parts of the external things that you put your interest in, because you put your interest in external things. It's being internal and knowing what you can control and how you evolve as a human being. That much I know. Putting it into practice was really difficult until this last weekend. So I would encourage everybody to look into this therapy. I would encourage people to think outside the box and keep an open mind, and get in touch with someone who is living in an immersed way in this world, who you trust, who is responsible. And I think Dylan Moscovitch would be, for my money, the best place to start. And thank you for being open to having this conversation. And these conversations are tough. Not only tough, but they're honest and they're vulnerable, which is the connective tissue that we kind of all share as human beings. But thank you for taking time to kick my ass last weekend too. That was a lot of fun. And hey, listen, there's a real fun aspect to this, like, real uncomfortable, but it's not fun to do a near hero dose of mushrooms and climb that ladder through the experience of psychedelics as well. But it's amazing. That wasn't my intention, but it was a really cool aspect of what I went through this weekend, if I can say that as well. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Thank you for your words. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for really embracing this journey the way you are and continue to. And yeah, man, I wish you all the love, all the beauty on this journey. I remembered that quote.
Well, oh yeah, good. Let's get back to it.
This indigenous elder said, "If I can always ask myself or ask Spirit or whatever, help me see the divinity or the beauty in this moment." And no matter how hard of a situation we're in, if we can endeavor to find the beauty there, we become the creator of the reality we're experiencing. We can actively shift the way in which we receive what we're experiencing. And that can be really challenging at times, but it puts us in a different place. And so as you said, sometimes it's challenging, and everything you've lived, all the challenges, but there's so much beauty right now growing from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that will not stay just within you. All the ripples that those around you will feel, it's amazing.
It is. And I don't mean to one up your quotes, but the late great Colonel Sanders once said, "I'm too drunk to taste this chicken."
All right, you win.
Winner,
chicken dinner.
Thank you very much, Dylan Moss.
Thank you, man.
I got sweaty hands, but thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, pleasure.
We'll do it again.
Yes.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
So, yeah, that was a little different for Diener. Thanks to everybody for joining, and thanks for taking time to watch and listen. If you have any questions about Moment Mushrooms or any questions about mushrooms in general, I suggest going to Moment Mushrooms. They're my go-to source of information, and they love to share information about their journeys and the journeys of others, and to educate you in terms of what psilocybin can do in terms of microdosing. But as always, consult a physician, talk to somebody. And if you're up against it and you're wondering what's next, it's the business of life. Go get that help. There's nothing more courageous than to reach up and ask somebody who knows what they're doing to help you with what you're doing if you're struggling. Thanks to Dylan. Thanks to our friends at Moment Mushrooms for being such an incredible resource. Again, I highly encourage you to go and check them out. And thanks to you for spending some time with us. Everybody's the same. We're all just trying to figure it out together. You can get everything we do at Crier Media. Go to crier.co for more information. Also, you can get us on YouTube, Crier Media on YouTube, or Dean Blundell Show on YouTube. You can rate, subscribe. We'd really appreciate that as well. Leave a nice note and review. And same thing with Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your audio versions of your podcast, a proud partner of ACAST. Thanks for watching the Dean Blundell Show. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you next week.